buildings there. Hey, wow. Hey, after the river that one. Okay. Pamela toi? Yeah. This is the two.
Yeah. The hotspot that you saw on the television. Oh, this is the yeah, but that one is separating us and Kruger National Park. Oh, okay. Yeah. Separating us and Kruger National Park. And that's one that will.
And that boy told me now, during festive times when the trucks are queuing, there's now a gang of 20, 30 people attacking the people on the road as they are waiting to go through.
Yeah, but remember that area is the responsibility of the local station.
Oh, okay.
All right. Remember, your function is going to be when you start to operate in the port of you want to be on the port of and the borderline. Yes. And then there's going to be another instance, you know. Actually, let's take the border police function. That is the existing. Hey, how's it? Do you know this guy? This guy?
Yeah, I know him.
All right. Okay.
The line of Burgersport, Woodstrand, Palabora.
But our challenge now is what? The place. They said no, they said the department said no, they will give us for 1 hour. As long as we are still pushing on that man, we must check the place. But the problem is there. Like social media. Yeah, it is. I think there's no problem. Because even there, we that side at Gurion to have the problem. They said no, there is no place.
But can they say they have not arranged some kind of
So they said the chalet. So maybe they will give us one because other police are staying there. And the defense they are staying in the other chalet.
Yeah.
As the West, Mr. Makai. Mr. Makai.
Then how many of you?
Yeah, I will. Yes. I don't know what's the name, also. Oh, what you are? Hey, YouTube Maramoko. I don't know whether it's going or not. It's not going. It's not going. Even network. It's quite a stretch, eh? Network.
I'm still going.
Is it far from here?
Just maybe 50 Ks.
Hey!
Just 50
Oh,
Ks.
yeah, better remain here.
Almost 500 meters.
Aluna is your job. You know what you are doing. No, that's false.
Not that heavy.
Is that so? By coverage la batho mo yo. Remember Tora, very the best section.
Sure.
No, someone is there in front. Don't relax. I've got 2 cameras. You can do the minister there. I can hear the back here. Someone is there.
are still, the department is still looking for. Now they said it's 3 commissioners. They're supposed to be 9. Okay. 9 commissioners for each and every province.
Abadom for the Chinese and go chimney.
You will see a lot of
Rombera.
Let's try there. I'm telling you, they will kill you.
The rich was out for that so that was right. Our train.
I said, yeah.
Our train.
You are here.
Chichapu.
And people will never believe.
Eh? What didn't draw Yana? Then go to Kakati. The rich with them too. Go for that is not a secret for them. Our train there.
Hey, and tomorrow I'm going to Cohort, eh?
Oh, tomorrow we are going home.
Yeah, because there's a rural safety meeting that
Okay.
they invited me.
Oh, they invited you that side. Okay. Yeah, but you are going to my place exactly. Because from Lord to my home, where I sleep, it's 17 kilometers.
No, then it's your home, man.
Towards Rolesdal. Yeah, when you pass Master Losi, then you go to side of Rolesdal, you pass my place.
Okay.
Urila with this guy, and to the Vita, I can be a Bushering.
What nothing at
What do you do? You will pay. Drew can imagine to.
I think I want to get you.
We're going to see you.
I know what you want to tell me.
Yeah.
Nakazao kwa chimbi. Baka kati.
Ah, yes.
That's nganda zilawela wezi. Ndio wana kama chimbi mungapo. Arshik. 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 Kile. Ndasli mam sida.
No, Zimbabwe.
Eh?
Zimbabwe.
Ngara, na idea. Lo wana zino gaya be. Rako foda guys zino ko question ku. Chadi. I'm going to rain. Sure. One day, sure. Fini Zimbabwe para sei. Zimbabwe. Una network anyway. Una network anyway. Error. Shit.
So you're recording for now?
I'm recording. While we arrive there, then I'll send it to like if it's going live.
Okay. Play. Yeah.
What can I do?
There's nothing.
Just capturing. I'm recording.
I'm telling you, no problem.
Goes like
Just keep some yellow box.
just go to Google. See in Cape Town. Almost 20 something.
No, but I just want to get your experience on it. Yeah.
Because like this is my logo. How do I put?
Yeah.
This is my information. So I need to I design it.
Live while it.
I design it and take out the card and save it on the card.
Okay. Think something.
Me, I'm a guest. EM, come. Where is the deputy?
Almost. He needs to be here. He's the one who's going to lead these guys.
Border Guard. Okay. Hand over to them. Let's go.
Yeah, so basically, as indicated, Minister, so this is the contingent, and of course, a team will also, in a way, be in this area. And like I've said, out of this team, through the Chief Border Guard, we'll then have another contingent going down there. And of course, from there, we'll then go to the east of the border post, and that is where we'll then go to Chibungu, and then we'll take it from there. So that is basically how it is, Minister. So I think on that basis, we'll leave the Chief Border Guard and just do the issues, and then from there, we'll exit back to the cars, and then we'll go back into the other segment.
Good luck.
Colleagues, Minister has already given a broad outline and an overview of what it is that we're doing here. So I think we can take questions from here on, direct to the Minister. The Commissioner is here, joined also by the Deputy Minister. And then you pose your question. Please indicate which media house you represent, your name, and then ask your question. Who do we go with first?
I can start.
Okay, next question.
Minister, you spoke about the issue of the importance of integrity. And made you emphasize that point?
Well, because there's a lot of corruption in Home Affairs. There's a lot of corruption on border duties. And everybody thought it was just going to continue like that. And now we are saying one of the biggest weapons which they must carry is their integrity. Not to be bribed, not to accept, to allow people to commit fraud. But having said so, I think sometimes we are a bit unfair, because within Home Affairs there are people with a lot of integrity already. That's why we are arresting. What was lacking in Home Affairs was consequence management. If you remember, it's not only in Home Affairs. You remember the Pakistani who I said were invading the country. That one I don't call illegal entry. It was an invasion, going through the passages of fire hydrants and etc. The person who saw them is an ordinary police officer who was standing there and he followed them, and then from there. And they did try to bribe. Don't think they didn't. They tried. They were carrying a cell phone. Somebody who was inside the country, obviously from Pakistan, was directing them on where to go. When he realized they were caught, he phoned our officials and offered them money and said, please release them, I'll give you this much. And they refused. They said no. Instead, they called me. That's why I went to the airport, because our officials were not prepared to be bribed. Now, after the Pakistani national was arrested, together with some South Africans in our Krugerstop offices, there are many people who tipped us, including Home Affairs officials. On Tuesday, when Dr. Lubisi, the team that was reviewing permits that were issued since 2004, he said most of their findings were held by whistleblowers. And the whistleblowers are working Home Affairs. Many of them come to my office almost every day. Minister, and just this week I was asking one of them, I said, but you have been aware of this. Why are you only telling us now? Because he said, I've been there for 15 years. And this is what has been happening in the issue of permits. And I said, why now? He said, no, because I can see there's action. Something is being done. And I want to be part of that action. That's why I'm now waking up to inform you. So not everybody is as corrupt as we're thinking. It might be that corruption was just left to go unabated, but that's now coming to an end.
Okay. And Minister, the BMA program seems very big. How soon can we anticipate an expansion with maybe the increase of more border guards?
We are, unfortunately, it's not in our hands. It depends on Treasury, but this gentleman has been talking to them even this week. Our dream is to increase them by 600 in the new financial year, because this is inaugural. We're just starting. So it all depends what Treasury says. If it's in our power, if we had a choice, by next year, April, when they become a standalone entity, there will have been 600 more than they are now.
Okay.
Minister, there's been talks around the department dealing with the backlog of asylum seekers, and that is also talking to some illegal immigrants who are not accounted for in the country. How is the department dealing with that now?
Let me explain what is meant by a backlog on asylum. Firstly, you must understand the process of asylum before you understand the backlog. Because yes, indeed, even the Auditor General at some stage flagged it. Do understand, we are working under the auspices of United Nations Convention of 1951, the United Nations Protocol of 1967, the Organization of African Unity, now AU, Convention of 1969. Those South Africa ratified in 1996, and we domesticated them into an internal law through the Refugee Act of 1998. Now you apply those. What are they saying? If you come into South Africa as a refugee or asylum seeker, when you announce yourself, whether you have got papers or not, meaning you basically illegal, but you announce yourself, you will be given a Section 23 permit. That's in terms of the Immigration Act, Section 23 of Immigration Act of 2002. That permit says you are allowed in, but go to the nearest refugee reception center and announce your arrival, that you are an asylum seeker. And we have got 5 of those centers. Once you arrive there, they've got no option. They must give you a Section 22 permit. Section 22 of the Refugee Act. It says you are here, we are giving you between 3 and 6 months renewable. While you are applying, while you are busy applying, you can renew. If you win, in other words, they understand exactly that you have to be a refugee. You are given a Section 24 permit. It then means you are under international protection, You have got all the rights that South Africans have got, except the right to vote. All the other rights you have got, you are under international protection. On the other hand, if you are unsuccessful, but who will be assessing, processing you whether you are successful or not? There are people called refugee reception determination officers. They are found in all the reception centers, refugee determination, RSDOs. If you don't agree with them, you appeal. You appeal to a statutory structure called RASA, Refugee Appeals Authority of South Africa. That is where the backlog is, meaning these people have been processed and rejected, and nobody accepts to be rejected. They then appeal, and they keep on appealing. I don't know anybody who has been rejected who said, yes, I was taking chances. They always appeal. And unfortunately, in South African laws, after all that appeal process, if it fails, you can still go to an open court. That's what the law says now. You can still go to an open court and say, the refugee status determination officer has rejected me, the appeals authority has rejected me. That's where the backlog gets built up. And the United Nations recognized us. Last year, they gave us 143 million rand to help us clear that. And they said we must hire 36 lawyers. Who are doing that? We have hired prominent people, like Dr. Professor Bani Bijan, who's retired rector of UNISA. He worked under United Nations High Commission of Refugees in Geneva. He knows how these things are done. We put them together as one of the 36 lawyers to deal with this backlog. And that's why we are building a backlog, because everybody appeals and appeals and appeals. Just to give you an example, the people who were holed up in the church in Cape Town, many of them were called refugees. The 3 ringleaders were not. And how do I know? Because eventually, after 13 years of them being here, the Refugee Appeals Authority went to look at the appeal. They rejected it. And the matter went to court. The magistrate rejected it after 13 years. And we deported them. There's a gentleman in that group, a very short gentleman, called Papi Sakumi. Just to thumb it all our noses, when he arrived in the DRC, he immediately formed a political party and tweeted and say, I'm back home and I now have a political party. Why am I telling you this? How do you live in one country for 13 years saying you need international protection? You are running away from your country. After 13 years, you go in and form a political party and nothing happens. The other lady who was loved by one of your media houses here, which I don't want to name because I'm not at war with you, Aline Pukuru, she was always on TV as a champion of refugees and asylum seekers, etc. We also deported her to DRC, and she denied that she's from DRC. She said, no, I'm not from DRC, I'm from Burundi. But we took her up there, and the DRC accepted her as one of their nationals. I spoke to the ambassador of DRC just last week, and he was telling me he doesn't understand why people are running away from DRC now, because the President Tshisekedi is not chasing people away, it's not persecuting anybody. And the proof was that here is somebody who spent 13 years here saying he's an asylum seeker and is able to form a political party and challenge him, and nothing happens to him. So I want you to understand that situation and where the backlog is. The backlog is not on people who are coming in for the first time. It's people who want to appeal, and they appeal forever.
Do you have other questions before we move
Yes,
to?
Minister, this is Moluko Mloto from ENCA. 2 quick questions. If the multi-agency approach has failed, which comprised of soldiers and police with boots on the ground, how then would you convince South Africans that this single authority agency is going to do a better job? That's number 1. Number 2 is, with the introduction of the 200 personnel, how many guards would you require in order for the authority to function optimally?
Let's start with the first one. There have been several coordinating agencies. 6 or 5? 5 since 1994. All of them failing. And we know why they are failing. Until NICOC, the structure that is responsible for coordinating intelligence, came with the idea of the Border Management Authority. Coincidentally, the commissioner was a coordinator of NICOC at that time. So he came up with the idea. He's been given an opportunity to implement it. Now, let me explain it in simple terms, why it failed and why we think this one won't fail. In 2020, there was congestion here where it went on for many days, trucks and all that, if you remember that. And everybody was in a frenzy about what's happening. There was even a wrong report about truck drivers just dropping dead like flies, which was not true, but it happened during that time. I came here. When you ask who's responsible for this congestion, SARS said, no, it's not us. Ask health, because they are the ones who caused the congestion because of COVID. I went to the lady who was in charge of health. She said, no, it's not us. It's immigration. Immigration is under Home Affairs. I went to Home Affairs. Everybody, all the multi-agencies here, everybody was denying responsibility for what's going on. I called them to a meeting. And I gave them an instruction as a minister, all of them. And they carried the instruction, and within 15 minutes, trucks were flowing. And I remember some journalists were asking me, what have we done? All I did was to give you an instruction. Why am I giving you this story? Because there was no commander in this multi-agency. Everybody was reporting to their respective ministry or department. Actually, to work at the border, before the Border Management Authority Act was passed, the people who were here had to apply 58 acts of parliament. 58 acts in health, in SARS, in police, in the army, in home affairs, in agriculture, in transport, in forestry and fishery. All of them were applying those laws. When you put them together, it's 58. It's very complex. People get confused. Now, those will just be policies. The act that will be applied is the Border Management Authority Act, with him as the commander. And in each of the ports, there will be one port commander who will be commanding all those activities. That is why, in terms of Section 97 of the Constitution of the Republic, the President is going to transfer certain functions. What does Section 97 say? In terms of Section 97, the President has got a right to do two things. To migrate one aspect of an act passed by Parliament for one department. Section 97 allowed the President to migrate that act to a different minister altogether. That's number one. Number two, the President can transfer staff. People employed and hired in one government department can be transferred via Section 97 to a different department. Meaning what? All the health workers here will be transferred via Section 97. Actually, we have already signed with the minister. So that when they do whatever about COVID or Ebola or what, in terms of reporting for work, making sure that work is done, they report to the commissioner and the port manager who belongs to BMA. Whereas in the past, they will say, we belong to health. In fact, I was driving from Gate Bridge in one of the occasions, and I heard over the radio that Kopfontein between us and Botswana is closed. And there was a lot of anger. It was a truck driver phoning. They said, no, that border is closed, it's unfair, Home Affairs is failing. I angrily phoned my officials, and they said, no, it's not us, it's health. It's closed because it's the time of COVID. You can't allow people in without certificate or without being tested, and health officials are not there. When we phoned, they said, no, in terms of our rules in health, we knock off at 4 o'clock. That's our yes, they said, no, that's our condition of service. 4 o'clock we knock off, whereas the border is still continuing to work. Now, under the Border Management Authority, that will never happen. The other thing, I don't know how many times ministers contacted me. The Minister of Home Affairs in Eswatini even asked me an embarrassing question. Minister, can we provide you with water? Oshoek border boat was closed because there was no water. And what was the issue? Everybody was attacking Home Affairs. But the people who give a contract for the maintenance of that port and supply water is public works and infrastructure. Now that function is being transferred via Section 97 to Border Management Authority. If there's no water there, the Border Management Authority must answer. It's no longer going to be looking at another department. They must answer themselves. So that's basically how these things are going to function.
Okay, Minister, I'm informed that the next point is a bit far.
The numbers will be determined when they arrive. But taking from what the army is doing, I think it's thousands. That's why we are saying this is the beginning. Remember, border guards will also have to be committed to the airports and the seaports. This small number of 200, we're just committing them to the 53 ports of entry and to the 5 segments of the borderline. So that's still the beginning. Every airport, you must find this type of people. So the Pakistanis who are going through the fire hydrant will no longer depend on one policeman noticing. There will be people who are responsible for that. But for the moment, we deploy nobody to the airport. We deploy nobody to the seaports. It's something that will happen over many years, perhaps even a decade. But for now, we want to arrest that which is obvious here, which I've mentioned.
Thanks, colleagues. I think we'll have another interaction on the other side.
The expenditure for the first round.
You must tell me.
The expenditure for the first round.
Yes.
First round, you mean the current?
The current one, the one that we are unveiling today.
Well, yeah, no, maybe let me put it this way around that expenditure issue so that it's very clear. Firstly, remember we are doing integration and we're also doing capacitation. In terms of integration, all of those figures are now being ring-fenced with the respective departments. We are now, as the minister said, we are moving the functions, and then now we are looking at the people that are going to be moved. We are looking at the expenditure in terms of the compensation of employees and the operational cost. So in terms of where we are, all that is work that is currently ongoing on the other side. In terms of capacitation, which is now the employment of the border guard, the current expenditure, we're looking at around 76 million. That is what we got from National Treasury, and that is what we are currently utilizing. But as soon as we become a standalone next year, we will have all of the monies moved from the respective departments into BMA. Next year, 1st of April, they will be able to have everything consolidated into one.
If I'm not mistaken, when you look at all the departments that are found at the borders, it looks like the total expenditure in terms of salaries is 5 billion rand. So it does not necessarily mean Treasury must raise 5 billion rand. Some of it will be transferred with the functions, with the people, and that's why on the 1st of April, when it's a Schedule 3A standalone entity, that will be able to come out because the Treasury will be able to outline it. Which functions goes where, which follows what money and all that.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you.
No, on the other side.